Well, good day and welcome to you. It is September the 27th, and I hope wherever you happen to be, you're having a great day. Of course, you're keeping healthy. And as we should all be doing this day and age, staying safe and helping other people stay safe in the process. Now, if you are new to Search for Signs, my name is Gary Willing. It is so good to see you, even though I really can't see you. I know you're there. Now, if you are also new to this channel, what do we talk about on Search for Signs? Well, we talk about the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. We talk about why are the Masters and the teacher coming back now? Why is it important that they do so at this particular time? And of course, what does it mean for you and me and everyone else that they're returning? Now, typically, the way that these videos are kind of set up is I receive questions from people. They post their questions in the comment section of this video, and then I try to answer the next video. And of course, you can join the discussion too by posting your questions in the comment section of this video or your comments. And if the comments are relevant, I try to address it. Today, I actually have one comment and one question to cover. But if you are new to this information and you want to know more, my videos are kind of light. There's not a lot of information to it. It's mainly just to kind of introduce you to this and let you kind of point you in the right direction, and then you can kind of take it from there. But if you go to the description portion in this video, you'll see links that I provided. A lot of different types of links talking about this story in their own way. But if you didn't know anything and you wanted to know kind of a place to go and get all the information you really need to kind of start, if you went to the Share International website, I think that's the best place to go. There you can actually get a lot of background information about Maitreya. You can read articles about Maitreya coming from Benjamin Creme's master, one of which I'm going to read today. You can read those articles as well. You can see images of miracles that have been going on for decades. I think they're evidence of hope. I think they're evidence of oneness. And I also think they're evidence that the teacher is back. You can see images of those. Healing waters, crosses of light, weeping icons, the Hindu milk miracle, just to name a few. You can read articles that were published in major news media about those miracles as well over the decades. But you can also read letters that ordinary people have written in over the years talking about their experiences with Maitreya and these masters too, which I think are just incredible as well. So they definitely add to the story as well. So hopefully you'll take advantage of that and go to the Share International website. And then, like I said, there are other links that I provided that you can go to. But if you go to that one first, it would make more sense. So hopefully that will be something that you do. And then you can either, you can learn as much as you want. You can take as long as you want. And then you can see if there's any truth to it for yourself or not. All right. So the comment I want to cover, I'm going to talk about it a little bit, and then I'm going to try to answer the question. And then I want to read an article coming from Benjamin Creme's master that I think can help address the comment. Okay, so the comment, the person said, why do we need individual Christ? Really, he sees or she sees and believes that it's more of a universal awakening of the Christ principle within the hearts of men, right? That's what the return of the Christ was meant in the Bible. And it's interesting because I've known about this information for a long time, and for over 25 years I've been speaking to the public in some way, whether it's in lectures or on TV or on radio. But I haven't really heard this in a while. But when I first started, I heard it all the time. I talk about Maitreya coming back and why it's important that these teachers are coming back at this time and so forth. And then somebody would usually say, well, why do we need him? It's the awakening of the hearts of humanity that's important. And that's true. But there's a reason why the teacher's coming back. And it's a universal principle that the teacher comes back at the beginning of each cosmic cycle, which we're headed into now. Jesus was the world teacher for the then new age of Pisces, the age that's coming to an end now, and we're moving into the energies, under the energies and the light of Aquarius. So a teacher always comes under cosmic law to teach us the way forward. Now this is kind of a different, or it's not the first time that a teacher's done this, but eons and eons and eons ago, the masters were out known for who they were in the world during the times of Atlantis and prior to that. And then Atlantis was destroyed about 100,000 years ago. And since then, humanity's been kind of in the dark. And the ideas and the thoughts and even the memories of these masters has long been forgotten and there's not a lot written about the masters. But the teachers always came back through their disciples in the world. They always worked through their disciples, like Jesus. And Maitreya, who was a master at that time, worked through Jesus and taught humanity kind of some preliminary teachings about what he's going to be talking in greater length in the coming time. Now, over the next 2,000 years, Maitreya is not leaving. He's going to be here with us the whole time, along with these other masters. Perhaps how it was back during the times of Atlantis when they spoke out directly to humanity. So he's not going to be working through a disciple like they did, 2,000 years ago, like the Buddha worked through the Gautama in that way, where he worked through the Buddha, who was a master, worked through the Prince Gautama and gave teachings out that way. Now Maitreya is going to be speaking, and is actually already speaking directly to humanity that way. But what you're saying is true. The hearts and minds of humanity is already starting to awake to the Christ principle within their heart, the need for unity, the need for justice, the need for oneness. And we're seeing evidence of that all the time. More and more and more people are marching for justice, marching for peace, marching for climate, to stop climate change and so forth. And this is the beginning process of what you're talking about. But Maitreya is already on TV, in a very preliminary way, speaking just, ordinarily to people. But eventually we'll start to see him more and more of us will see him, I guess, is a better way of saying it, as a leader, as someone who's speaking for us, who's speaking for our desires for peace and our desires for justice, and it will galvanize us even to more action. And that's where Maitreya's really, his role is, at least initially, as what the Buddha said, who will inspire and galvanize humanity to build a brilliant golden civilization based on righteousness and truth. That's what he's starting to do. It might not look like it now, but that's what's happening. Now, these teachers, these masters along with them, like the Master Jesus, the Master who was Paul, the Master who was Saint Germain, the Master who was John, and so forth and so forth. These masters are going to be teaching us, some of us, but some of them will be working with humanity on building structures to help support that unity and that oneness. Right now, our economic structures, our political structures are corrupt. There's no life to it. There's no energy to it. They're not serving the needs of the people at all. And they're imploding. And no matter what our leaders do, they're just collapsing in on itself. And eventually, they will fall to the ground and there'll be nothing left. So then humanity needs structures to kind of live. We shouldn't be living in an anarchical state, so these masters are coming now because they see that the time is coming when our economic structure will be totally defunct. Our political structures will totally be in gridlock and there'll be nothing done. We're already kind of at that point, right? There's not a lot getting done, right? So that's why the masters are coming back to help us build these structures to help support all of humanity, to build structures that help the environment stay safe and we don't decimate the environment in the process of making profits and so forth. That will be gone. The economic structures that exploit people and the lives of people, exploit the environment and rape the environment in the way that they're doing, will eventually be destroyed in a way that will allow a new economic system to flourish, where all the resources in the world will be shared equally amongst nations, and there won't be this exploitation of other nations and other peoples and so forth in the way that it is today. But it seems rather utopian. And the article that I'm going to read, he even addresses that it seems very far-fetched, but it's not actually. So, as Maitreya says, we only need to start the principle of sharing. But that kind of what you're saying is true. But I do think that's the reason why the teacher and these teachers are coming back now. It's a universal law. But also too, and this is the other thing too, I want to leave it with it. Humanity needs examples in order to achieve what they aspire to. And in every walk of life, every area of life, we have those people who have perhaps mastered what we're looking to do, and it makes it easier for us to do it in the same way. And that divinity, like you're talking about, is starting to awaken in the hearts of humanity, but it's not truly manifested yet. And when we see masters like Maitreya and the Master Jesus and these other masters out openly in the world, we'll have wonderfully perfect examples of what it means to truly be divine, which is the point. And we'll, at least initially with Maitreya, for instance, we'll see how he interacts with those groups of people who love and respect him and want the changes for the world that he's advocating. We'll see him be just as detached with them and speak to their hearts in that way, but yet we'll also see how he interacts with those people who hate him and those groups of people who are totally against what he's advocating, peace and justice, right? We'll see how he loves them unconditionally the same way. And then we'll go, wow, I can do that. It might take me some time, but I'll be able to do that one day. So that's where I think having examples like this will fit in. But yeah, at the same time, it's for us to make the changes. Maitreya and these masters aren't going to do it for us. They can only inspire and galvanize us to do it. So that's where they fit in. But it's a universal cosmic law that a teacher comes back at the beginning of this new cycle. And then there'll be another teacher come in the next cycle. But, he won't have as much to deal with as Maitreya is having to deal with, for sure. But anyway, so hopefully that answers that or addresses that comment. Now, the other question that this other person asked was, what does Maitreya say about reincarnation? Well, Maitreya will talk at great length about reincarnation over the coming time, because central to his teaching is the law of cause and effect, and living harmlessly within that law. And the law of cause and effect, the law of harmlessness, and the law of reincarnation or rebirth, they really go hand in hand. And they affect each and every one of us universally all the time. Now, Maitreya's biggest priority is peace right now, but once peace is created, one of his biggest priorities, if not his biggest priority, will be the removal of guilt and fear. And one of the biggest fears that humanity has is, of course, fear of death, fear of disease, fear of one another. I think would probably be the biggest three types of fears, all the way down to fears of snakes and bugs. But, for the most part, the biggest fear we have is the fear of death, the unknown of what happens after we're dead. Now, a few things about this. Maitreya, of course, will talk about it, that there is reincarnation and that we will come back and we have nothing to fear because there will be a continuity of life and awareness, that we don't just all of a sudden vanish and become unaware and unconscious of life once we die. Our bodies die, the muscles, the bones, the blood, that all turns to dust eventually or gets, incinerated in a cremation process, but the life force within that lives on, right? That's us. That's who we are, right? He'll talk about that. And there will also be, and this is the other thing too I want to point out, it's been said that there will be a group of scientists in France that will discover scientifically the existence of the human soul, which will help bring about, I think, a better understanding of death. So it won't only be Maitreya and these masters talking about it. Humanity is going to discover that we are a soul. So now the teachings and the idea and the truth of reincarnation has been around for a long time, actually a lot longer than we think, especially in the West. But there's a lot of misinterpretations of reincarnation. So according to the Ageless Wisdom Teachings, we don't transmigrate back to a bug if we live a bad life at this particular lifetime. Now we will have to work off the karma. So if we create a lot of harm in this lifetime, we will have to start working it back in this lifetime, but also in the next lifetime, we have to work it out too, So, or the life after that or after that. So that's what slows the whole evolutionary process. But if you look at the Bible, there's a couple things that I want to point out about reincarnation. Jesus talked about reincarnation, and it's been said in the Ageless Wisdom Teachings, there was a lot of information about reincarnation, but it was taken out. And it was taken out purposely by Emperor Justinius, who was an emperor who lived hundreds of years after Jesus in Palestine. And he was a Byzantine emperor, and he and his wife became Christians later in life, and then saw it as their duty to edit the Bible. For whatever reason, they saw it as their duty to do this. And they started taking out what what they were reading about reincarnation was one of them. And there was other things that they put in there, like Jesus as a deity, Jesus as the one and true only Son of God. They started writing that in there and so forth, and putting those distortions in there themselves. So they were very much to blame for a lot of the dogma and the fear that people have, dogma of Christianity, but also the fear of death that's really, enthralled humanity for so long. I mean, they're two of the main culprits for it. But anyway, but there were some examples that were still left in there. And it's interesting because as many times as I've gone to church, as many times as I've listened to people talk about Christianity or their own view of the Bible, or just whether it's in one-on-one with people in my life or whatever, nobody mentions these, when it comes to this. In fact, they don't really even believe that reincarnation exists. They believe that when you die, you go to heaven or hell based on whether you believe what the church is saying is true or not, right? Now, Jesus, and I do think that if you look at it and you read it in this way, you might be able to see what I'm saying about it. He talked about it in a very casual way, and it in a way so casually, that's why I think people miss it. It wasn't this, ministry on the mount kind of moment. It was just a casual conversation between people, between he and his disciples, right? But his disciples asked him, who was John the Baptist? And like I said, in a very casual way, Jesus said, don't you remember what I said? He's Elijah come back again, which John the Baptist was a reincarnated, he was the reincarnation of Elijah, the prophet Elijah. And then they even asked him about him. He said, well, who do the people say that I am? And they said, well, and I think it showed some of the misunderstanding of some of his disciples about reincarnation, but they were rattling off some of these historical figures that people thought that Jesus was. And then the other one that I think is in there were others, but the other one that I think that people miss is when Jesus said to the people, greater things than this shall you do yourself. Again, very casually. Almost, I think it really proves that they were talking about it at great length. It was just the pieces were taken out, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense, if you just read that one little thing. But perhaps the people of that time were admiring Jesus's compassion and love and wisdom, and maybe some of the things that he could do, materialize things or whatever, right? Heal people. And he said in a very detached and casual way, well, greater things than this shall you do yourself. I mean, you will be just like him and beyond. We will all be like that. And I think the powers that be, for whatever reason, left it in there, but it really does, I think, point out how much they were talking about reincarnation. So anyway, hopefully that answers that question. But in the future, Maitreya will talk at great length about reincarnation. These masters will talk about it and how it relates to us today. They won't give readings about how famous you were in your past life or anything like that, but it's going to be about what does it mean for us today? What are we doing today that's affecting our future? What you sow shall you reap. Those who live by the sword shall die by the sword, as Jesus put it. That's kind of, I think, how they're going to put it in a very real sense, of in a very practical sense of what it is. But it will start to eliminate the fear of the unknown of death. We'll have examples of reincarnation. The other thing too is there's an article that I could perhaps read if we ever talk about it again. That Benjamin Creme's master wrote about the continuity of consciousness, that this new generation of young people coming in, there are a lot of people that actually have continuity of consciousness. And once Maitreya is out known for who he is, more and more of those young kids will start to speak on their experience and their memories of past lifetimes. And in a very real sense. Not that they were Joan of Arc in their last life or Cleopatra or somebody famous, but be able to prove it in a very real sense. And there have been some young people who have spoken very accurately about previous lifetimes to the people who lived during that time, that only those people knew, kind of proving that there was a continuity of consciousness. So Anyway, hopefully that helps. Now, this article that I'm about to read, you can go to the Share International website and read this article and other articles like it. I do think it's best for you to read it yourself rather than me read it to you. But I always like to read these at the end, not because I think they're less important than me talking, but I want to leave you with the words of this master and not me just talking. You know what I mean? So hopefully that makes sense why I put it at the end. So hopefully you'll listen to this all the way through. But it does, I think, address the comment about the Christ principle within the hearts of humanity. So, it may seem impossible to believe, or so much wishful thinking, but from the higher viewpoint of your elder brothers, significant changes for the better are taking place throughout the world. We see a growing movement towards unity and justice, and a growing realization of the absolute necessity for peace to reign if humanity is to continue on its path of evolution. This represents a huge step back from the brink of self-destruction. There are many, of course, who still conceive and perfect the tools of war, waxing rich and powerful in this deadly trade. The people, however, are awakening. A different drum is beating, a new rhythm of the peoples respond. In almost every country, men are sensing a new light, a quickening thought, a rising hope. Freedom, justice, and peace are beginning to be felt as nearer, more real, more possible of attainment than ever before. Global communications are giving men a new sense of themselves as one humanity. This new awareness is not complete or perfect, to be sure, but we see clearly the beginning of a new and hopeful trend in this direction. This indeed gladdens our hearts and betokens correct response to the energies of the new time. When Maitreya steps forward and begins his open mission, this trend will magnify and become the aim and purpose of men and women of goodwill in every country. More and more men will understand that despite the differences in color, race, and religion, men and women everywhere are one, that they require the same justice and freedom which some believe is theirs alone by right. Maitreya will emphasize the utter necessity for peace, and that the complete renunciation of war can only be achieved by trust. Sharing alone, Maitreya will affirm, can engender that trust. Thus will Maitreya speak, thus will he foster the sense of the one humanity and the need for sharing. Needless to say, not all men will respond to Maitreya's call for unity and brotherhood. But as the voice of reason and justice penetrates the hearts of men, more and yet more will see the truth of his insight and the necessity for change. Thus will it be, and thus will men awaken to the light of truth that is among them, and will see him as their leader and guide. Gently, yet firmly, he will coax men to act in their highest interests. Like an elder brother, he will lead the younger members of his family step by step towards their own truth. This time is not far off. In truth is very near. Watch and listen for the rising voice of the peoples of the world as hope and joy alike rise in their hearts. Then will you know that the wheel has turned, that the pain of poverty and injustice will be no more, that the blasphemy of war is renounced forever, that the law of love has found its rightful place in the hearts of men and women everywhere in this, our world. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.